All right, this is part 2 of a video I started the other day, going over these verses from chapter 3, at the end of the chapter 3 of the Bhagavad Gita, verses 39, 40, and 41. We were really going over verse 40, and we're gonna continue. I got through all of 40, but I started to review it, but the phone died. I don't think it's going to happen this time, so hang in there. Let's go over it again, okay? Verse 39, chapter 3, 39. Avritam jnanam etena jnanino nitya-verina kama-rupena kaunteya dushpurenanalena cha. Avritam jnanam etena jnanino nitya-vairina kama-rupena kaunteya dushpurena alena cha. Even the knowledge, jnana, even in parentheses, the knowledge, jnana, or wisdom, of the knowers of wisdom, jnanina, is obscured, avrita, by this perpetual enemy. Etena, this, nitya, perpetual, should be verina. Made a little mistake here. I keep correcting, keep finding these little things, correcting little things. Having the form of desire, kama-rupa, which is an insatiable fire, dushpura analacha. It really should be and, having the form, and which is an insatiable, because the cha means and, right? O Arjuna, son of Kunti, Kaunteya. That's what I have. Even the knowledge, jnana, of the knowers of wisdom, jnanina, is obscured, avrita, by this perpetual enemy, etena nitya verina, having the form of desire, kama-rupa, and which is an insatiable fire, dushpura analacha, O Arjuna, son of Kunti. It's really dushpurena alena cha, which means, man, I keep seeing, this was not a mistake, but I keep seeing things that need a little correction. Dushpura analacha. So, perpetual enemy in the form of desire. Kama, right? Kama is the word. Sometimes it gets translated as lust. Often, generally, it's generic, meaning desire, right? More specifically, it's lust. You could say lustful desire. I think Parama Karuna Devi had angry lust, which I don't see that, because it's not actually in there. And anger is a different thing, right? There's kama, there's krodha, and there's lobha. Krodha is anger, lobha is greed. Those are the three things, three major things, right? Lust, anger, desire, and greed. Or desire, anger, and greed. But then you could say, well, this is where you might translate kama as lust, because if you say desire and greed, they're very similar in many ways, right? Greed is a kind of desire. So what's the difference between greed and desire? Well, that's why you might translate it as lust. And lust we generally think of in terms of sex, right? Like, and I think we probably, if you're in a body, you probably know that lust is insatiable, and it is a fire. And Johnny Cash had that song, "The Ring of Fire," right? Which is applicable, because because Shiva dances in a ring of fire, but the fire is like an insatiable or unquenchable fire. How do you put out the fire of desire, the fire of lust? And you could say maybe that's what this is talking about, right? that even the wise are troubled by lust, or maybe they are troubled by just simple desire. But the main point is that we're talking about kama, right? Kama is this perpetual enemy. That seems to be the meaning here. Okay, so let's go on. So the next verse, indriyāṇi mano buddhir asya dishtanam uchate eter vi mohayat yesha jñānam avritya dehinam. This is verse 40. The senses, indriyāṇi, the mind, mana or manas, and the intellect, buddhi, are said to be its, and I have in parentheses, the eternal enemies from the previous, right? From the previous, meaning we're talking about desire, kama, right? Are said to be its abode. Asya would be its. Adhisthana, abode, or home, or dwelling place, or seat. It is said, uchate, right? Is said to be its abode. Asya, how could Asya is translated of this, of it, right? So it's talking about its, but it's referring to the previous verse, the previous shloka, right? So it's clearly talking still about desire, kama, or lust. So this kama resides in the senses, the mind, and the intellect, right? It somehow is related to these faculties, the senses, the mind, and the intellect. Through these, etai, that's what etai means, is like through these, or from these, with these, it deludes this embodied one. Vimohayati means it causes delusion or it deludes. This embodied one. Esha is this. Dehina is often translated as embodied one or embodied soul. Obscuring their knowledge. Jnāna-avritya. Now this is the same word. Avritya is the same as the previous verse that says avrita. Even the knowledge of the knowers of wisdom is obscured. So I use the same word in this verse, right? Obscured for avrita. In this case, it's avritya dehinam, but it's the same, right? It's the same word. So through these, it deludes the embodied one. Dehina is the embodied one or the embodied soul, obscuring their knowledge. Now, there is not actually in the Sanskrit. That would be an addition, and I'm going to take that out because I decided I was going to take that word out because you don't need it, right? Through these, it eludes this embodied one, obscuring knowledge, or you could say obscuring its knowledge. But you could just say obscuring knowledge because that's what the Sanskrit actually says. And remember, my translation is trying to stay as faithful to what it actually says as possible, without being clunky and without being, not really good English. I mean, obviously, the Sanskrit grammar is different than the English grammar, so you have to change things around a little bit. And that's fine, as long as you retain the basic meaning, and that's what I'm trying to do. Whereas other commentators, other translators do not always do that. And they change things around a bit more. Like I tried to even stay close to like if the verse starts with these Sanskrit words that makes a statement, I start with that statement generally. I don't put that statement somewhere else, right? Which is okay if you do that, and some translators do, but I decided if the verse starts that way, then let's keep it that way. If it doesn't hurt to keep it there, if it still makes sense, then keep it there. So the senses, the mind, and the intellect, indriyāṇi mano buddhir, that's how it starts, are said to be the eternal enemy's abode. or desires abode. Through these, it deludes this embodied one, obscuring knowledge. So the question is, that my brother Will Ravidas asked is, first of all, the word deludes, is that how can the embodied soul, how can the Atman, if this is referring to the Atman, how can the Atman be deluded? That doesn't make sense, right? How could the embodied soul be deluded? If the Atman is pure, if the Atman is stainless, if the Atman is eternal, if the Atman is immortal, how can it possibly be deluded? That doesn't make sense. And what I said was, it can be deluded when it's in a body, right? because the body obscures, the body. This is where we could actually bring in. I hope I get through all of this, because I just noticed I have 10% now, but I'm going to do my best to get through all this. We could say that the body is part of the illusion, and the illusion is set up to keep us in delusion, right? So let me get to where we want to go here. So talking about the embodied soul, it can be deluded, right? Otherwise, the soul would be one with God, right? There would be nothing to do, right? But the embodied soul, yes, can be deluded. And in fact, that's what the Gita is all about, is Arjuna is clearly deluded, and by the end he's saying, "Gone, my illusion is gone, my delusion is gone, Krishna, thank you. You have cleared the way to understanding, to knowledge. Your words have taken away my delusion, my illusion." And desire comes through these faculties of that are part of our physical makeup, or part of our worldly makeup. And I think that the thing is to explain how the embodied soul is deluded. Why? How can it be, right? If the soul is eternal, right? If the soul is pure, how could that possibly happen? And I think this is what this is trying to get at. All right, verse 41. Here we go. Tasmāt tvam indriyāṇi-ādau niyamya bharatarṣhabha pāpmānam prajahi hi-enaṁ jñāna-vijñāna-nāśhanam. Tasmāt tvam indriyāṇyādau niyamya bharatarṣhabha pāpmānam prajahi hi-enaṁ pāpmānam prajahi hyenaṁ jñāna-vijñāna-nāśhanam. Therefore, tasmāt, everyone has the therefore, right? Tasmāt clearly means therefore, or thus, right? Restraining your senses first, tvam indriyāṇi-ādau niyamya. Niyamya is restraining. Indriyāṇi is the senses. Tvam is your. Ādau, first, right? So restraining your senses first, O Arjuna, best of Bharatas. Bharata-ṛiṣhabha is an epithet or a nickname of Arjuna. Kill this evil devil. And now Sargent has evil demon. I put evil devil. Pāpmāna would be the word. Prajahi hi-enaṁ. The word he means indeed. It's like you must kill a prajahi. Prajahi is kill, destroy, slay. Pāpmāna, this enam is this. Pāpmānam, devil, evil being, demon, which would be desire, right? Or lust, kama. which destroys nāśana, knowledge, jñāna, and discrimination, vijñāna. All right? So you restrain your senses, and through yoking yourself to yoga, restraining your senses, you can restrain your mind, restrain your intellect, and you clear the way to knowledge, right? Find your way back, and you don't allow yourself to be deluded. All right. So, therefore, restraining your senses first, O Arjuna, best of Bharatas, kill this evil devil, which destroys knowledge and discrimination. That's what I have. Sargent has, therefore, restraining the senses first, O Arjuna, kill this evil demon. He has demon, which destroys knowledge and discrimination, only almost exactly the same. Shivananda has, therefore, O best of the Bharatas, Arjuna, controlling the senses first, do thou kill the sinful thing, desire, and then in parentheses, desire, right? So he has sinful thing. Papa is often translated as sin, right? Or it can be translated, and Sargent translates papa almost exclusively as evil. And I agreed with that. Instead of sin is quite biblical, and it's one of those things that maybe, maybe evil is a better word, right? In the end, it really does not matter too much. The destroyer of knowledge and realization. So Shivananda translates vijñāna as realization, which is interesting, right? Whereas Sargent and myself translated as discrimination, but maybe vijñāna is more closer to realization. So let's see what other people say. Eswaran, fight with all your strength, Arjuna, controlling your senses, conquer your enemy, the destroyer of knowledge and realization. So he has realization too, which is interesting. So I might want to reconsider that, but we'll have to look further. Fight with all your strength. Fight with all your strength is poetic. He does not say fight with all your strength. But I think what Eswaran is bringing to the fore, I think, here is the idea that the real battle is within yourself, right? That's really what the Bhagavad Gita is all about, and that's what Gandhi understood too. That this is not a battle against an external foe. This is a battle against this lustful desire. Let's put it that way. Tilak. Therefore, O most excellent Bharata, first control the senses and destroy the sinner, who is the destroyer of jnana and vijnāna. So he translates jnana as spiritual knowledge in parentheses, and then vijnāna as specified knowledge, which is interesting. And he translates pāpmāna as sinner, the sinner, which is interesting, right? But evil devil, evil demon, it's pretty much the same thing, right? Radhakrishna has, therefore, O best of Bharatas, Arjuna, control thy senses from the beginning, right? He doesn't have first control your senses, but from the beginning, and slay the sinful destroyer of wisdom and discrimination. Sinful destroyer of wisdom and discrimination. So he also has discrimination. He doesn't have knowledge, he has wisdom, but he also has discrimination. So Radhakrishnan, he also has a very good translation. So this is something to consider. Slay the sinful destroyer. The idea is that you want to, from the beginning is good, because it indicates that you want to stop desire before it even starts, right? You want to get the ego out of the way before it even takes hold, right? So I think that's a good way to put it. Juan Mascaro, desire has found a place in man's senses and mind and reason. Through these, it blinds the soul after having overclouded wisdom. Oh, sorry, this is the wrong. This is Juan Mascaro this is his verse 40. Desire is found in place of man's senses, mind, and reason. Through these it blinds the soul after having overclouded wisdom. So he has overclouded, right, for avritta. Okay, but how does he translate this 41? Set thou therefore thy senses in harmony, and then slay thou sinful desire, the destroyer of vision and wisdom. It's poetic. It's similar to Eswaran translates, right? Sinful desire. It's good. I don't think, I like the poetic nature of it. I don't think it's that faithful to the language. Or as faithful, let's put it. It's pretty faithful, but it's not as faithful. Nikalananda, therefore, O Lord of the Bharatas, control your senses at the outset, similar to Radhakrishnan, right? He said from the beginning, control your senses from the beginning or at the outset, and slay this foul destroyer of knowledge and realization. So he has realization like Shivananda, right? So Shivananda and also and Eswaran had realization for vijnana. Foul destroyer. Everyone has a different thing for pāpmāna, right? Okay, Mahadev Desai, the Gita according to Gandhi has, therefore, O bharatarṣhabha, bridle thou first the senses, and then rid thyself of this sinner. So he has sinner, which was the same as someone else we had before, the destroyer of knowledge and discrimination. So he had discrimination too. So we have, two camps. We have the people that translate vijnana as discrimination. We have the ones that translate it as realization. And so far it's about balanced, right? It's about 50-50. Rid thyself of the sinner, the destroyer of knowledge. Now, destroyer versus, destroys, which destroys. Which destroys knowledge and discrimination. Everyone has destroys more or less, right? I think. Prabhupada, therefore, O Arjuna, the best of Bharatas, in the very beginning curbed this great symbol of sin, and he has, in parentheses, lust, by regulating the senses, and slay this destroyer of knowledge and self-realization. So he has self-realization as opposed to just realization. So it's pretty much, his is pretty straightforward, better than his usual translation, I would say. It's pretty close to what it actually says. Except he says great symbol of sin, which doesn't say there. It doesn't say that. Why would he say great symbol as opposed to just this sinful being? Maybe because he doesn't want to make it a devil, like he doesn't want to give it like reality, like it's the devil or it's a demon that actually has a form, whereas a thing, is actual an entity. So in a way that's good that he put that. It's kind of explains that this is not something like Satan or a devil, and that's why it's problematic to translate it that way, because it's not like, are we talking about an actual thing, like an entity? And maybe it is, maybe it does have kind of a life of its own and a persona, in Hinduism there is a god named Kama, right? The god of love, or the god of lust, the god of desire, who's like Cupid, right? And he has arrows just like Cupid, and he makes people fall in love just like Cupid. So there's reason to think it's a real person, like a persona, but there's also reason to think it's not a persona. So that's a whole nother issue that won't go into right now. Jeffrey Armstrong, therefore, Arjuna, you must first assert control over the bodily senses by the enlightening principle of the niyamas. Wow. he brought in the niyamas, but that's like bringing the Yoga Sutras into the Gita, and the Yoga Sutras came later, apparently. Then you must systematically remove any desires that could lead to committing papa, which eventually causes the destruction of both jnana and vijñāna. So he doesn't translate jnana-vijñāna, and he's trying to, his translation is often kind of like a purport, almost like a commentary in itself. He's trying to explain the deeper meaning, but here I think he takes too much. He goes a little far in this, and I don't think that's the best translation personally. I'm going to keep going quickly. I hope this doesn't shut off. Therefore, having first restrained the senses, O Arjuna, remove the sinner that destroys wisdom and discernment. So this is Swami Tadatmananda. He has discernment for vijñāna. He has sinner. Everything else is pretty much the same. Moving on. Parama Karuna Devi has, therefore, O best of the Bharatas, Arjuna, you should engage the senses in a regulated way first, from the very beginning, and then slowly abandon in order to vanquish this great cause of sinful actions that can destroy knowledge and wisdom. So she has jnana and vijñāna as knowledge and wisdom. No one else had wisdom. She's the only one so far who translates vijñāna as wisdom. She has the great cause of sinful actions, for pāpmāna, which is kind of like Prabhupada. He had the great symbol of sin. Right, did he have the great symbol of sin. Maybe she was using Prabhupada. I don't know, but let's just move on. We're going to move on, unless there's something really that really is important to talk about. Therefore, Swami Chinmayananda, therefore, O best of the Bharatas, controlling first the senses, kill this sinful thing, the destroyer of knowledge and wisdom. So he also has wisdom for vijñāna. So that's two in that camp. Everyone else had realization or had discernment. But it's kind of like more or less the same thing. Jayadaya Guyanka, therefore, Arjuna, you must first control your senses and then kill this evil thing, which obstructs jnana, knowledge of the absolute or nirguna Brahma, and vijñāna, knowledge of sakara Brahma, or manifest divinity. Now, we're talking about Brahma, we're talking about Brahman. I think he means nirguna Brahman and sakara Brahman. And I would think vijñāna actually is nirguna Brahman, and jnana is sakara Brahman. But what do I know? I would think that vijñāna is actually deeper than jnana. In other words, vijñāna seems to be suggest something that goes beyond jnana. That's why people are translating it as realization. Realization is not just knowledge, but it's knowledge of the self, where you realize Atman is Brahman, right? So he's the first one that has brought in that idea, right? Nirguna Brahman and Sakara Brahman, or Brahma. He says Brahman, but I think he means Brahman. Google Translate has, therefore, robust of the Bharatas, controlling the senses in the beginning. That's like Radhakrishnan. Forsake the sin which destroys knowledge and realization. So Google Translate has realization. Interesting. Thou shouldst, therefore, first subdue thy passions and get the better of the sinful destroyer of wisdom and knowledge. That's Charles Wilkins. He had the first translation, English translation, in 1770 or something like that. He came out with his translation, the first English translation. And now there's like 400 or more English translations of the Bhagavad Gita. so he has wisdom and knowledge for jnana and vijnana. Again, I think jnana is more knowledge, and vijnana is more like realization. But we'll have to look that up, and we'll have to do a little study of that. And then finally, we have Sir Edwin Arnold. Therefore, thou noblest child of Bharata, govern thy heart, constrain the entangled sense, resist the false, soft sinfulness, which saps knowledge and judgment. So he has judgment for vijnana, which is interesting. Well, that's like discernment, right? It's similar to discernment. And that's what I used, and that's what Sargent used, and that's what several other people used. Other people used realization for vijnana. So I think here the key words are, what is, how do you translate pāpmānam? Is it like sinful desire, sinful devil, evil demon, the symbol of evil, the symbol of sin, the symbol or the cause of the symbol of the cause of sin, or whatever it was. And then how do you translate vijnana? How do you translate jnana? How do you translate vijnana? And what's the difference between the two? So again, to go back, tasmāt tvam indriyāṇi-ādau, niyamya, bharatar-ṛiṣhabha, pāpmānam, prajahi, hi-enaṁ, jñāna-vijñāna-nāśhanam. Therefore, restraining your senses first, O Arjuna, best of the Bharatas, kill this evil devil. Again, this is referring to desire, which destroys knowledge and discrimination. And you know the story where Shiva actually burns Kama. Remember Cupid, right? He burns the god of lust, the god of desire, to ashes. And Parvati makes Shiva bring Kama back to life, because she realizes that if Kama is no more, then there won't be any more, the world won't continue without desire. Desire makes the world go round, right? But if you are a spiritual seeker, you want to conquer desire. And I think this kind of gets to the idea of killing your ego, right? Killing your, destroying the ego. I don't think you necessarily have to destroy the ego. What you need to do is you need to get it out of the way by restraining your senses, right? I think that's really how you do it. But the language here is martial, meaning it's battle-like or warlike, which is really because the Gita is about a battle, but the battle is within yourself, right? So let's end with that thought. The battle really is within yourself, and the yogi is fighting the good fight within themselves, right? And it comes down to desire. And what is kama? We'll have to say more about that, and maybe look at other verses in the Gita. Thank you so much for listening. As I have been saying, Hari Om Tat Sat, which means God, ain't that the truth? I hope. And we'll see you again soon. Thanks, Ravi Das, and we'll see you soon. Happy New Year.